Attention, listeners. Do you ever find yourself struggling to decide what to watch on a Saturday night when you're in the mood for horror? Or perhaps you're trying to round out your own horror film education. In either case, I'm sure you'll be able to make some great discoveries in my 10 by 10 horror watch list, featuring a breakdown of the 10 favorite horror movies from 10 renowned horror directors. We did a deep dive of the favorite horror movies from directors including Guillermo del Toro, Ari Aster, Jordan Peele, Quentin Tarantino, James Gunn, Rob Zombie, Martin Scorsese, and many, many more. Here you'll find a collection of each director's favorite horror movies, along with quotes about what they appreciated about the films, all in an easy-to-reference PDF that you can download absolutely free. Featuring a mix of well-worn classics and deep cuts, hopefully you'll discover some overlooked gems and look at old classics through new lenses. Download the 10 by 10 horror watch list for free by visiting nicktaylor.com/horror guide. That's nicktaylor.com/horror guide. Welcome back to the Nick Taylor Horror Show. Hugues Barbier, Justin Timms, and Joe Yanick are the trio behind Yellowvale, a New York and LA-based worldwide film sales and distribution company with a focus on horror and boundary-pushing genre cinema. Their slate includes Lose, I Trapped the Devil, Blood Quantum, The Cleansing Hour, Hellbender, Depraved, Sator, and most recently, Gaspar Noé's Lux Æterna. In this conversation, Hugues, Justin, and Joe get into how they came together as a company, keys to successfully producing boundary-pushing indie movies, and what they look for in the movies they produce. Without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Yellowvale. All right, so we got Hughes, Justin, and Joe from Yellowvale in the house. Guys, how are you doing?
Amazing. How you doing?
Doing good. Doing really good. Really excited to talk to you guys. I think in addition to having probably the best production logo I've maybe ever seen, really excited by a lot of the movies that you guys are putting out. And I feel like you're one of very few studios who has a pretty distinctive brand of content. A24 is another example. You can always kind of tell, oh, that's an A24 movie. I feel like you guys are really developing a very specific sort of brand, you know, when it comes to your content. Is that on purpose? Was there any sort of thinking behind that?
I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, thank you, because we're a company that started with like no money. So the only thing we have is like our identity. So we have to craft a lineup that like people, I think, go like, wow, like, it's cool that these guys like worked on these movies. And I think we had like, you know, early on, we were lucky to have a couple really awesome calling cards right away. Like, Lose, obviously, from Berlinale,
yeah,
from Tillman Singer, and, you know, Starfish was our second acquisition. And then we had, you know, I Trapped the Devil, go to IFC quite early on too. So we were able to sort of get really lucky with a lot of cool films early on.
Nice. And you said that you guys came together with no money. Can you tell us the overall origin story, like how you guys know each other, how you came together, and how you got the company off the ground? I know it's a big question.
Yeah, I can take that. It kind of came together honestly because we found Lose in Berlin, but we kind of knew each other from the festival side, like Joe, Hugues, and I worked with Brooklyn Horror, and Hugues and I are doing North Bend together, and Joe was at Visit Films doing festival booking, so we kind of worked with Joe a lot anyway, and also he's just in New York, so we knew him from being at festivals and things like that. And one day Joe was just like, you want to start a sales company? What do you think of that idea? Or you think there's like a room in the market for a company like ours? And I was just like, yeah, totally.
I think actually what it was because I didn't like outright ask you. I kind of was like, hey, like
Yeah.
I was like, do you know any all genre sales companies that are based in the US? And like obviously there's a lot of companies that focus on genre, but we couldn't really think of necessarily like one company that only did genre and did like art house genre for sales. And he's like, no, let's do it. And I was just like, oh, okay, that made it easy.
we were kind of like talking about then we started talking about Hugues kind of naturally, but Hugues was working at another company, so we didn't necessarily want to ask him to leave another company and like come work with us on our crazy idea that we don't know if is going to work or not, you know?
Right.
And we called him and we kind of gave him the same speech, like, what do you think of this idea? And he was just like, I'm in. We were like, oh, okay.
They didn't really ask me. That was I was just added to the company because of shit. He said yes, and we have to roll with it.
Wow. And I think from that point, we launched the company officially, like just mere months later. I think like it was less than 6 months from that point.
Yeah, we kind of had a longer plan. From that point, we thought maybe it would be a while, but then we found Luz and we met Tillman, and just from like the very first time we talked with Tillman, it was just like perfect fit. Like they're awesome, and we're still like great friends. Like we're sad because we're not in Berlin right now, but it's nice because every year at least we can go to Berlin, and like he's in Germany, so it's cool to catch up like as the movie we launched with. So
yeah.
It's a funny thing for, like the lineup and how people could perceive as, having an identity, because like about the origin story and where we're coming from and, the festival thing. I think the rule of thumb, more or less, there is some exceptions to it, but usually we have to, all three of us love the movie to work on it.
Yeah.
And so there is exceptions where, I love a movie that, Joe and Justin don't. And so there is this weird thing where the taste of the company collides is basically the intersection of all three of us.
Yeah. That's really, it's interesting because I've talked to the Radio Silence guys also. And similarly, it's like if we don't all love the movie, we're not going to write it. We're not going to do it. We're, just finding that consensus, I think, is really interesting. Do you guys have similar tastes in movies, or is it the fact that you guys have different tastes that make your collaboration as interesting as it is?
It changes daily.
I think we have colliding tastes. Like the thing is, it's like, we're probably all suspect of each other's tastes in some cases, but like when we all love something, I think we know, okay, there's probably something to this. If we all love it and we all we're really champion some like weird films sometimes. So
nice. So when you guys decided to start the company, what was the first step? Just going from, okay, we want to work together. How do we get this off the ground? What were some of the steps in you guys like establishing a company to now having a large number of movies under your production banner, or distribution banner rather?
There was a long process of getting organized, like on behind the scenes, before we like actually came out and launched the company. Like we did do it faster than we thought, but we still originally found Luz in February, and we kind of kept it quiet until, what was it, July or August?
We basically the company was originally started in January or February, where we started to have the inception of all this. We somewhat did the formality of like all the paperwork in March, and then we basically acquired the movie, did everything behind the curtain. But I'm going to let Justin finish with this. It's a long process, and also now we're doing distribution, but at the beginning we were doing sales, and the whole process of trying to think like we want to work on movies that we like and we don't want to do volume, to all of a sudden having more movies that we like that we were expecting to. And
and I think from like a filmmaker perspective, we really approached our launch. We were able to sort of do it silently in the background, because we started with festivals, which is really like kind of like how we do all of our films ground up. We like really like prioritize a really smart festival run, and we were able to start building sort of like a word of mouth reputation for the film, I think, like among programmers and things like that. And then we launched the film publicly at Fantasia, which has like a really incredible publicity aspect to it. I mean, the press team there works really hard. And I think like that's something to like focus on is like how what festivals are really pushing press, because Lose exploded out of Fantasia and it had already been on the festival circuit for like 6 or 7 months at that point, or five or 6 months. And it was really like at Fantasia that it became like a really hot title for us, which was great.
That's really cool. So that was the first movie out of the gate was Lose, and I'm probably oversimplifying it, but you guys saw it. You went on the festival specifically looking to acquire a movie, and saw Lose, loved it, bought it, and the rest is sort of history.
Yeah, I mean, we had to scramble together like an opening slate because we wanted to launch and not just be a small company with one film. So there was other things in terms of like. I guess how you mentioned
pick up I Trapped the Devil before that. It was kind of like not in a rough cut, but like not finished stage. Maybe like 3/4 done when we came on. So we had that, and then we had a few other things we announced with it. But yeah, actually one thing we didn't necessarily say like out of order here, but we kind of saw that like being on the festival side, that there were movies like this that ultimately were great movies, but never really found the right home. Mm-hmm. So we kind of came to that's part of the story of how we decided on this like type of film that we were going to work on, is like they're there every year. There's these few movies that no one really knows what to do with because they're not genre enough, or they're a little too weird for some reason, or things like that. So, just to include that. Piece.
Yeah, no, which is great because I think there's such unique titles. I actually interviewed Josh Lobo right around the time I Trapped came out. He loves you guys. First of all, he spoke really highly.
We love him.
Yeah, he loved working with you guys. Said you were a blast to work with. So, yeah.
I think he just texted me today, actually.
Oh, nice. How's he doing?
As far as I know, pretty good.
Good. Yeah, curious to see whatever he does next. I Trapped was pretty interesting. So for the uninitiated, can you guys just give us the long and short of what you do as a company? I mean, you mostly specialize in sales and distribution, right?
Yeah, and distribution is relatively recent. We only launched distribution in October of last year with Knocking. And that kind of came as a natural progression from sales. And I suppose, like, I don't know how much you have sales companies on the podcast, but like, I think sales are sometimes obvious for some people, and sometimes even people in the film world don't really know, like, have never worked with a sales agent or really don't know. So, I mean, there's all different types of sales agents, but we operate as like a rather boutique agency where we're like kind of mixing marketing and sales together. We're really like we're not doing like sort of like library output sales. We're doing like very specialized runs. So I think like, in terms of sales is we're kind of ground up with the filmmakers, taking it to festivals and then bringing it on the market and actually getting it to distributors around the world.
Got it.
But yeah, with distribution, it's cool because now kind of some of the gaps we're seeing in North American distribution, we're able to film in certain ways as well. And we're able to sort of bring the same sales mind to distribution. And, certainly Justin and Hugues have experience in theatrical and spaces and distribution too. So it kind of made sense for us.
Cool. And in terms of distribution, where do you feel we are right now? Because theaters, unfortunately, I hate when people say theater is dead because I don't believe that. But post-COVID, it's been, really, really difficult. I'm seeing Jackass tonight, so I'm going to the theater. I'm trying to go see movies as often as possible. But in terms of
a wonderful experience,
yeah,
Jackass was. It was magical.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's where we disagree sometimes with Joe. Like I had a hard time to sit through 4 jokes for 90 minutes, but
I could have gone 90 more. Yeah, normally it's not my thing, but something about it.
There is something about this movie that's very visceral.
It got like a 94 in Rotten Tomatoes, which I
know,
was
it's
shocked
amazing.
by. So like, it must be, it must be.
I mean, it's what the cinema was at some point. Like you have to be viscerally hitting certain notes, and when
it's like a Grand Guignol, but
it's a movie about
kicked in the
friendship.
It is. There's a friendship
and,
to it.
and male friendship, and it has more full frontal male nudity in a mainstream movie than
Awesome.
I've ever seen.
Awesome.
Which has to be. I feel like they had to have like greased some wheels to get that like an R rating, because it's a lot.
Okay.
Lots of balls.
The other ones were pretty serious with like dicks and balls, and he was drinking bull semen at one point. Like, I don't know how any of that got.
That happens.
They bring it back.
Yeah. Oh, they bring it back. Oh, great.
Not to spoil anything, but
there's some cool stuff.
Imagine it all now, though, in HD.
Oh,
that's the biggest difference, because like before there was like mini DV. I feel like there's like a grain. There's something there blocking.
And I actually was a viewer of the original season 1 of Jackass on MTV, which was really lo-fi. That was made with like fucking camcorders. So now HD, like what is it, 20 something years later? Okay, so I'm in for a delight. But in terms of where movies are at right now, I feel like streaming is getting bigger. Obviously, it's a huge understatement. But we have more niche platforms like Shudder and Screambox coming out of the woodwork. It feels like it's a heyday for horror, and particularly horror filmmakers who are well poised, more so than seemingly any other time period, to get movies off the ground for very little money, and also get them seen by people. Do you feel like this is sort of a heyday for indie horror filmmakers?
In ways, yeah. I think it always kind of is. And because the thing is, like, one of the last places you can be weird is in genre, because there's like an unspoken rule that if it's horror or something, like, all bets are off. There's supernatural. There's all these things. But we're in a kind of interesting place, yeah. I mean, maybe Justin or Hugues want to.
Well, I mean, I think like the secret of all this is, being in a better, worse, or different position. People are consuming that medium in general, like movies, in a different way that they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And as long as you find that specific way that your niche corresponds to, for example, you were saying, like people are basically, Shudder is a big thing. They obviously, like, their subscribers exploded, and they are mostly like very, very loud. Like, they are talking about the movies, which is very cool. I mean, Screambox, like the Cinedigm thing, and also the Blu-rays for, specialty Blu-rays like the Vinegar Syndrome, and all the partners who are working with them for most of our releases. Nice. It's big, I'm French, as you can hear. I can tell you that in France you have also a market that start to develop about the Blu-ray, and trying to have like this specialized and nice edition. It's not as developed as it is in this country. I think it's always trying to find the best way possible to access your audience. Mm-hmm. And I think now there is so many ways, like, from SVOD to AVOD to VOD to theater to, videogram. If you find for each movie the best way to reach them, it's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what excites me the most, streaming has its issues, of course, in terms of how it dominates the industry in a lot of ways. And it's hard to fight for visibility when like films become like content. But I think what really excites me about like the certain age of streaming that we're in is that we're starting to see curated platforms, like specialty platforms. Like Shudder has great curators, like Sam and Emily, who are at Shudder, are incredible. They know good movies. They're bringing good programming. You can like trust it. I think with the return of like Fandor or like Mubi, you have these finely curated platforms, and I really think that, to me, and that's also why the specialty Blu-ray market does so well, is like you can trust a curatorial brand. If you trust the people who are putting the movies out. So it excites me that you can find new audiences easily because people will trust a certain platform. It's harder when you have just like a more general large platform with thousands of titles, because then there's like kind of a cloud, like it's a bit messy.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So is a company you guys formed in 2018, I think, which was fairly recent. And I mean, again, you guys have just seemingly blown up. A lot of movies under your label. You guys, any tips on successfully building a production company the way that you guys have? Again, sorry, distribution company.
Sometimes it sounds a little naive, but like to me, it's like don't really like listen to the industry and like understand it, but like don't work on stuff because it supposedly works. I mean, like
Right.
Trust your gut. I mean, I think that goes for all levels of filmmaking. Like you'll be told a lot of things as a filmmaker, like what to do, and like a lot of them are smart. But I think like what it's so exciting and why we love first features are they're usually the one time a filmmaker doesn't have that many people telling them what to do. And I think you get really amazing stuff, even if it's messy, even if it's sloppy, when you just get someone really like trying and like putting every bit of passion they have into something. So to me, like I never want to not work on like debut films because they're so exciting.
That's
The
great.
film world doesn't work without them, in my
I
opinion.
mean, that goes back to what Justin said, where, like the inception of the company was, like because we were coming from this festival background where we saw some movies and we saw the reaction of audiences to see those movies and thinking like they are missing something.
Yeah.
And it's basically because we trusted our impression of all this, and we're just like, well, if we can do a blueprint of those movies that nobody wants because they fit nowhere, but all of a sudden we put a marketing behind. So I mean, like this is like what Justin and Joe said, like it's more or less like trust your guts when you're starting a company, and and obviously you have a big part of chance, which is like you have to fit with the zeitgeist, and you can't just like starting something and hoping for the best, like there is always a chance factor behind this, what, people actually want to see what you give them.
Yeah.
But we would not be able to do what we do if we didn't love all this movie and if we didn't love the process and we didn't love working with those, because there is something about, like you were asking earlier, like what is the process on a daily basis, what we're doing. We are listening to the filmmakers a lot. We're trying to see how do they want their release to be done. We are, finding the right poster maker. We are trying to find the right trailer maker. We're trying to package a movie in a way that is going to be interesting for the audience, but also on the sell side for the distributors. And we're trying to always be, this third man in between the artist and the people that are going to sell the movie. And that's very exciting on a daily basis. Like, like trying to help their vision to be seen the best way possible.
Yeah.
I mean, in that you kind of have to learn how to play the game to get what you want, and so it's like it's not all just like not like be yourself and stuff. Like there are places you have to compromise, especially like for platforms like VOD and stuff like that. Like a lot of VOD posters don't look great. There's a reason for it. It's because like on that style of platform where you're seeing a ton of little posters, it's really hard to stand out, so they're just trying to stand out. So like if you know that, you know what they're looking for, then you can still kind of create good materials that attract them. But it's like it's like not trying to not play that game at like system like game at all is like you're gonna probably lose and end up at like heads with the distributors. So there are certain sacrifices or compromises to make, but like they don't have to be in like your film as much. They can be like in a little bit of marketing or something. Like figure out how to find the audience that will then like the movie.
Yeah. Well, I find it really what's the opposite of disheartening? Heartwarming. That you guys really like working with first-time filmmakers, because I feel like it's typically pretty difficult to get your first movie made, and the fact that you guys look for that, I think, is very, very encouraging for the industry itself. When you guys were just starting out, did you take on investors, or did you just bootstrap everything? No, just all ground up.
It was literally, I think the only investment we made in the company was just like incorporated, and then it was just like we were able to like do like we were just always able to reinvest back in the company. So it was just kind of like
it was many years of not getting paid for a while.
Yeah.
We paid a lot. We paid a lot for our logos. That's what we did, But apparently we paid off.
It's a beautiful
honestly,
logo.
That was already something. Like it was always like put in a little like reinvest, and I mean we always knew from the start that there's like two ways to do it. Is like you can look for investment, but then you are it's not the three of us making the decisions. It's the three of us with some sort of investor desire. And maybe that's really like, you know, and your relationship with your investor could be everything. So for us to like, just like really make a splash, it was just like, well, let's just do this the other way. And let's just kind of like go ground up. And I think, you know, I think at this point now it's like things have changed a lot for us internally. Like, it's a lot different, but it's like every year we experience, I think, like a pretty good growth, and it's been steady since the beginning. So it's been exciting, and I think distribution represents a new part of that for us. So we can do a lot of different stuff with distribution, but it's also a lot different.
Yeah. Was there like an inflection point where it's like, okay, we can all quit our day jobs and go head for, or did you guys just jump right into doing this? Into Yellowvale full time, or a little bit of both?
No, we jumped in.
That's great.
I mean, I think we were trying to ease in, but it was like we said, we had to launch, and it was just like the only way to do it was just to jump in. I mean, like of course, like we like work in the industry, like we've all like, you know, consult or do other gigs and stuff like that. Yeah. But, like, you know, Yellowvale has been our main thing since we started.
Cool. What is next for you guys as a company? Any thoughts about getting in just actual top to bottom production?
We've had our like toe. We've been dipping our toes in production since kind of the start. You know, production it's a long process on a lot of films, so it's not really like all that exciting. Sometimes it becomes exciting very fast, and then it's over. And you have a movie, but like a lot of it's quite boring, and you've been doing a lot of pitching. So we're looking for it. Obviously, I think there's a lot of filmmakers we really love that we'd love to see some projects on the ground. But it's you know, I think it's probably in the next year to 2 years, like we'll probably start seeing like the fruits of like some production stuff come to light. So
okay, great.
I think like in general, you know, the reason why we expanded from sales to distribution and, you know, like trying to deep into production and all this, because the industry, and especially sales itself, or, you know, is not separated anymore. Mm-hmm. There is like a lot of links. And also we see as a company that diversification of the platform and the way that we can make money is key, especially, you know, we're not Saban, or we are not, you know, like big companies that, you know, makes volume to make money. So, you know, at some point there is a certain realistic way of seeing things, where just like if we have few selected movies in distribution and few selected movies in sales and few selected movies in production, all this can make actually a living. We're never going to be rich. I mean, we don't do this, you know, of course, we want to live out of this, but this is not like the big game is to try. I know that sounds like very, you know, idealistic, utopistic, or whatever, but we're genuinely doing this because we like the movies, because we like the people, and we think that it's important. Those movies have to be seen in the best way possible. This is part of, you know, trying to not being part of this volume thing, but trying to cherry pick and present the movies the best way possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes we fail. I mean, you know,
it shows. I mean, the movies feel so unique and so handcrafted, so curated. They don't feel like cash grabs. They feel like very, very unique visions. I mean, I feel like you guys have a brand that, you know, people will not want to miss any of your movies because it's a Yellowvale production. I mean, I feel like you guys are building a very strong brand. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah, I'm super excited about what you guys do next.
There's a lot of cool filmmakers out there. You know, we're really thankful for everyone we've had the chance to work with. They're all lovely people.
We're always saying, like, without the filmmakers that are trusting us to present their movies, we're literally nothing. You know, we listen to them, and we're trying to make the best. But if they are not here, the company would not even exist. Yeah.
Well, how do new filmmakers get on your radar, particularly if they don't have their movie finished and it's not on? If you're not finding their movies and acquiring them on the festival circuit, how do new filmmakers, particularly first timers, get on your radar?
I mean, pretty cheap.
You can write us. we accept emails.
Actually, it is good advice to not over, like, I mean, you gotta pitch yourself, but like do it like, I mean, like push it out when it makes sense. But I mean, we look at shorts, we're watching features for, I mean, like we all sort of like, I actually still program for festivals in some way.
Oh, cool.
So we're pretty immersed in that world. And we're meeting people through friends a lot. I mean, like that, it is, they say it's like always who you know. And it's like, there's the nepotism side of that argument, which
Right.
certainly exists, but there's also the practical side of that argument is like people like are really like looking to push their friends so it's like a lot of people are just like, hey guys, I think you would really like vibe. They have this project, and we just kind of like meet people, and when it makes sense, that you can.
It comes in all different ways. Unpredictable.
Yeah.
That's the thing with sales too. Is like we don't necessarily know the next movie because it and we don't know when it comes. It's tricky. It's weird.
Gotcha. Well, it's really cool. Were there any either books or resources for any of you guys that were particularly helpful, either from a career perspective or a creative perspective? Or were you guys School of Hard Knocks, just learned by doing in terms of your overall careers?
I mean, I think practically learn by doing, but if I would say if you're interested in sales, there's an incredible book called Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes that traces like one sales agent it's about John Pearson, who was a sales agent. He was a sales agent for like most of the massive like Sundance hits in the 90s, and he sold them. And it's really an era of film that's dead, so it's not very practical, except it's a wild ride. I mean, you're hearing him talk about running from like a mere like meeting someone in a hot tub to another hotel room because he got like a $3 million offer and he's trying to flip it into like a $5 million offer. I mean, those deals few and far between in indie cinema nowadays. I mean, you're still getting big deals out of Sundance, but that book is fantastic. But there's not a lot of books on sales that I think are very fascinating. Or
Gotcha.
I could be wrong on that, but that's the one that sticks out for me.
Cool. Before we wrap up, Hellbender is coming out. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll probably be out. You guys must be pretty psyched. I've been watching the trailer for weeks. Looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love it. It's so amazing. I mean, from now it's be out in 2 weeks. So, but even just the festival reaction, like people are loving it, have seen it. So, and it also the filmmakers couldn't be any sweeter. Like they're the greatest. So I'm really happy for them and excited to have it out there. Even just now, like getting the materials out, the trailer, the poster, like I think it's all like really great stuff. So we're happy with it.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the filmmakers are a family, the Addams family, and not that Addams family, but the other Addams family. Right. And they are, like, to echo Justin, just the absolute realist people doing every single thing themselves, like strapping themselves up on ropes with like plastic sheets and like just commercial or just like regular fans underneath to create like comp shots of like flying in the air and stuff. They're the most amazing, like most DIY set of filmmakers that I think can find working in America.
It's interesting because usually you always say that, like a first time filmmaker and like these are inspirational people, spirits. They are genuinely this, like they wanted to make movies, they bought a 5D. They have like one setting or couple of settings and they're shooting in their backyard. They are literally like the essence of indie filmmaking. Like we want to do it. I take my two daughters, my wife, and I'm shooting this and everybody's part of this. Like if you check the credits.
So last question, the Yellowvale logo, I clearly obsessed with it. Clearly a giallo reference, and the word giallo actually means yellow. What was the inception of the logo and the company name?
Exactly that. The dumbest. we should start being more vague about it and be more mysterious. But the real reality is we were like really struggling, and it's just like literally like giallo means yellow. Vale is kind of like the loosest analogy for cover, and because like the giallo were based on like the yellow cover books, it's basically a really obtuse stupid reference to Giallo that also like had a cool ring to it.
Nice.
And I think I sketched like a general idea of what I thought the logo should be, which at first was just like a hand coming out of like a gloved hand coming straight out of a triangle, I believe. But we brought it to Gilles Vranck, who is a friend of Hugues particularly, and become a friend of ours, and they just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And that was like I mean, we were like, that was the one thing early on that we were like very, very like specific about, is we didn't want to go out with like a half-assed logo and then like a year later rebrand ourselves. Like we wanted to just go out and have the same logo for our entire company. And it's not easy to find that, because logos are something that can be very costly. For sure. So we're forever indebted to Gilles for just wonderful, amazing.
Gilles is a poster designer and designer just per se. He did like the Cathay and Forsani, the Strange Color of My Body's Tears, and Amer. He's the guy that designed this. So that came as
Corpses 10.
Yeah, and the copper stand.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love that one.
He basically designed the posters for all three of them. Like, that's the copper stand is actually one of my favorite one of everything he did.
Oh, nice.
So it came like a natural. He's doing also posters for Arrow and a couple of others.
Yeah, it's such an amazing logo. I think you guys could sell merchandise. Like, I could see it on T-shirts and a hat.
We're going to NFT. We're going to NFT this thing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, no, we are not. No. That's the thing you should edit. We have some pins and hats and stuff.
We do have some hats, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we have like some very nice pins and some hats you can find.
Nice. They're available on the website?
Yeah.
They're on Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. So you listeners, head to Vinegar Syndrome and grab yourself a Yellowvale hat. Guys, this was awesome. Thank you so much. This was a real blast.
Yeah, thank you. This was really fun.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, of course. Before we part ways, any parting advice for people who want to do what you guys do?
Good luck. Not easy. To launch a company is kind of crazy, and I mean, I think like we all were at a point in our career where we just like we're very hungry. I'm very happy to have done it, but like to do it again would be really hard. But also to work in the industry, I think at all is hard. So I think whatever you love, just fucking go for it. Right. I mean, to an extent, there's a lot of privilege in saying that too. I understand you got to pay the bills, but like you could find ways to pay bills, I guess too. We like I said, you have to do a lot of side gigs, but like if you really do like believe in something, it's like worth doing side gigs to like put your heart into something you like, in my opinion. And it's not been easy, but it's been really rewarding. So
great, perfect words to end on, guys. Thank you again. This was great.
Thank you so much.
All right, so here as always are some key takeaways from this conversation with Yellowvale. Number 1, unanimous love is a must. As a company, the guys have different tastes, but the DNA of their slate requires a mutual love of every movie they put out. Producing movies is grueling, lengthy, complicated, and backbreaking work. If you're not all in and you don't have passion to make it through the tough times, you're simply not going to pull your weight. Because of this, Hugues, Joe, and Justin all agreed that they need to all love each movie they work on, as their mutual passion will motivate them to push each movie through and forward to completion. Number 2, trust your gut. When selecting movies, Hugues, Joe, and Justin don't use any Moneyball metrics or read the Hollywood Reporter headlines to see what's popular and then make films based on perceived audience interest or what's considered hot right now. Instead, they trust their gut. If they see a movie that's totally off the wall and unlike anything they've ever seen, they rely on an intangible, intuitive gut feeling to tell them whether or not to pull the trigger on it. The danger of always relying on data and proven formulas is you'll ultimately make derivative movies. However, it's still important to see everything and be aware of what's popular. In the 80s, Brian Usna and Stuart Gordon binge-watched every single horror movie that came out in the previous 2 years. They didn't do it to see what was popular and then made movies based on the same things. No, instead, they wanted to see what audiences were seeing so they could deliver something completely fresh and different instead of a copycat or coattail riding film. As a result, they came up with Reanimator. All of this comes down to gut instinct and not what's trendy. Number 3, support first-timers. All of you first-timers, listen up. Yellowvale loves working with first-time directors. They claim there's a blissful ignorance of what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, which makes many first films very exciting and different. Embrace that in yourself. Don't try to make your movie fit into a box. The public needs to see your unique raw vision in a way that hasn't been tampered with. So all of you who are insecure about your lack of experience can rest assured that this insecurity could very well be your greatest strength as a director. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with your friends and family on social media? Don't forget to follow the show on Instagram at I'm Nick Taylor, that's I am Nick Taylor, and on Twitter at the same handle. Thanks again for listening to the Nick Taylor Horror Show.